Is Netflix's Persuasion lost in translation? This is the question we'll be discussing today in the very first stretch ever of the Georgian Sisters Express journey through the world of Jane Austen. Welcome and thank you for joining me. I'm Diana, and together with my sister Lakshmi, we're Georgian Sisters. I hope you enjoyed our introduction video, or if you haven't seen it yet, don't worry, at the end of this video I'll give you the link. Apart from working hard to soon be launching a brand new, unique Jane Austen shop for you to enjoy online, we're also embarking on this incredible journey together. Having loved Jane Austen for over 30 years, we're now deepening our knowledge, getting to know all we can about her work, and the world of Jane Austen today, then, and whenever. And while Lakshmi is working on her illustrations and getting the products ready, I thought I'd invite you to my garden. As it's a warm summer day, I thought a long stretch in the coach is not a good idea. Let's stay close to home and talk about current events over a lovely cup of tea. You see, there's been quite some tumult in the world of Jane Austen, as we all will have noticed. What with the new Netflix adaptation of Persuasion coming out last Friday, the 15th of July. I do wonder what your opinions are. I've been scanning the internet and I've read so many different views as to not only puzzle me a little bit, but to also really divert me. Of course, I've got my own opinions too, but they're less important to me than knowing what everyone else thinks about it and seeing what this does to people and what it says about what we love about Jane and how we'd like to understand her stories. I've read things ranging from the call to tolerance and open-mindedness addressed to those called the so-called Jane Austen police, being open to modern adaptations, to the outcry that everyone involved in this production ought to be imprisoned, and as clearly no one involved in making this production ever read the book, they do well to use their time in prison to make up for that. Of course, this did have me crack up with laughter. And talking about cracks, I personally do think that Carrie Cracknell's version of Persuasion shows quite a lot of cracks. But this is a personal opinion, and yes, I could give you a few examples. Personally, I really missed a proper chemistry between our main characters, Captain Wentworth and Anne, and I felt that the changes that had been made to the story were rather unnecessary and uncalled for. And perhaps worst of all, I love Anne as she is in Jane Austen's book, and the version of Anne I got to see here was a rather sexy, emotional mess, I would say, of a girl who had her own attractions, but really was so feisty and so completely different to the Anne as we know her from the book that I didn't quite get the point anymore. But this was my personal experience, and I think that's the bit I'm most interested in here, is that was my view, my experience. But all of us have our own views and experiences, and I'm quite happy to respect those, and I'm very happy to respect any different kind of production and choices people make when adapting a novel like Jane's, regardless of whether I like it or not. And so this made me think about something that is actually at the core of the Georgian Sisters Express journey through the world of Jane Austen. This is everything to do with the following question. I think the question is all about translation and identification. And what do I mean by that? Well, when you're going to be making a film adaptation of a story or even a period novel, as is the case here, I think the main question you're going to ask yourself in the first place is, how am I going to translate this story into images? And how am I going to do that in such a way that my audience is going to identify with the main characters? Because the more they identify with them, the more they're going to enjoy the film, right? So there are choices you're going to be making there. And I think the choice here has been very much to translate the story and very much also the characters, even the main character Anne, to 21st century values and personalities. This is one way of trying to get people to identify with them. But they have chosen to not do that fully. They've chosen to maintain the period feel to some extent with perhaps not faithful but still pretty and pleasant looking Regency style clothing and, interestingly, some Regency manners and modes of speaking and the kind of limitations such as the fact that women could really only get on in life by getting married. That creates a kind of tension and contrast between the choices where they've translated the story to our century. So you end up with this mixture of different eras, different styles, and really it's a personal thing whether you consider they got lost in translation or did a brilliant job. Personally, I much prefer the adaptations that actually really try to approach the era and the characters and the story, the whole setting as faithfully as possible. Why is this? Well, because I'm personally fascinated by the fact that Jane's stories open a door in a way to her world, to her era, but also to her mind, to her thinking, to her values. And to me, that is the most fascinating of things, and I don't want to miss out on it when I'm watching a screen adaptation of one of her stories. So I think what's quite amazing in a way is that although Jane lived a good 2 centuries before us, she had a means of communicating that we can understand. Her language was a bit different. It was a bit wordier, and if I started speaking Regency English today, people would look at me rather strangely. But we can understand it. We can read it. It's no Shakespearean English. It takes a heck of a lot more study to get to understand that. But Regency English is accessible if your modern English is good enough. So I think that's incredible. I can read directly, literally, what Jane wrote in her day. And to me, when there is a screen adaptation, the closer we stick to that entire feel, the more I feel I'm actually being helped visually to enter that secret door and into that world of Jane's mind and life and era. And what I like to do in that process basically is to translate myself, my 21st century self, into her stories, into her mind, into her era, and take it from there. Learn from it, experience it, simply enjoy it, be fascinated by it. And I think in the case of Jane, this is very easy to do and really well worth doing because she had such rich ideas of her own that she communicated in such a nice, sometimes direct but often indirect way that shows so much wit, cleverness, and insight into human nature. So rather than imposing our 21st century values on Jane Austen's characters and stories, I would opt for the reverse. I would say, open that secret door. This is why I so loved that 2008 ITV mini-series of Lost in Austen. I mean, literally opening that secret door and entering behind the scenes into the world of one of Jane's novels. I mean, it was hilarious, all the contrast between our modern era and the Regency period and the incredible new turns the whole story took. But it helped you enjoy that feel, live that fantasy that so many of us, I think, have, which is all about being able to sneak into that world, actually almost becoming one of its characters. And that is what this whole Georgian Sisters Express journey through the world of Jane Austen is very much about. We want to discover about lots of things relating to the world of Jane Austen, but above all and before anything else, we want to enjoy the magic of leaving behind this 21st century occasionally and slipping into the Regency period through the back door and getting to know, trying to imagine what it was really like and really trying to understand the characters and that message that Jane Austen centers so directly 2 centuries ago, and that we can actually still take to heart. And that takes me to one specific aspect of her work that I do miss in a lot of the more modern adaptations, and that is everything to do with delicacy and subtleness. Delicacy and subtleness are omnipresent in Jane Austen's stories and characters, and in my view, they are very superior qualities. I felt that the delicate, subtle sense of humour of Pride and Prejudice that makes it absolutely hilarious without being burlesque or ridiculous was perfectly translated in the BBC 1995 adaptation. The way David Bamber depicted Mr. Collins or Alison Steadman interpreted the fabulous Mrs. Bennet, to me, was absolutely perfect, and the same, in my opinion, went for every other single character in the story. Personally, I experienced, for example, Mr. Bingley in the 2005 film of Pride and Prejudice as almost clownishly silly. In the 2020 adaptation of Emma, to me, there were aspects that were like almost choreographed, very much 21st century style funny, and Harriet particularly to me became clownish. But others might not at all agree with me. So personally, I sense that there is a tremendous degree of subtleness in the way Jane Austen describes things and in the way her characters operate. And I feel the 21st century could do with an injection of Jane Austen and Regency subtleness rather than doing things the other way around. And that is why I can't wait to further embark on this wonderful journey on the Georgian Sisters Express Coach. And this takes us to the first stop with our Georgian Sisters Express Coach. The big question to you: is Netflix's Persuasion lost in translation? I'd love to read your comments below this video and see what your answer might be to that question. And I'd also love to hear from you what you feel has been the best interpretation or translation of Jane Austen's stories in a screen adaptation, and why, and how did it work best for you to identify with the characters of the story. So which of the Jane Austen screen adaptations is your favorite when it comes to the perfect translation helping your identification? Thank you very much for watching and for your comments. And if you want to join us further on this journey or would like to see our introduction video, please click the link in the description under this video. See you soon. Get your free coach ticket now. Sign up below and hop on board the Georgian Sisters Express.